Johnny's an icon, yes, but more than that, he's a good person. He's smart. He's fiercely intelligent and very creative. And working with him, I really do see why he is the icon that he is.
Meeting an actress like Amber Heard was just a dream come true.
He's brilliant at his job, and he's kind of mastered the Hollywood machine and done so in his own way, and I think I would be silly not to take advice from him, and he's been very generous.
I also have to thank my wife, Amber, for putting up with me, for living with all these characters, which can't be easy.
She said he beat her up, he choked her, headbutted her, kicked her on 14 different occasions.
In a story about him and his then-wife Amber Heard, a UK newspaper called Johnny Depp a, quote, wife beater.
Amber was stuck in a relationship that actually seems nothing short of a nightmare.
A lot of the case on behalf of Johnny Depp was that Amber Heard was lying. Somebody had to be lying. Either Johnny Depp was lying or Amber Heard was lying. So credibility was really key.
I'm being called a liar and a gold digger. And I'm not lying about any of this, and I am not after a dime of your money.
He grabs my head, takes a fistful of my hair and says, I hit your eye, hon, let me see your eye.
He pulled her by the hair so hard that clumps of her hair were actually removed.
Are you crazy?
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this. You got this going?
I just started it.
Motherfucker! Motherfucker! I tell my soul.
At the High Court in London, the Hollywood actor Johnny Depp is suing the Sun newspaper and its executive editor Dan Wootton.
As the actor faces 14 domestic violence allegations against him from his ex-wife Amber Heard.
And the Sun newspaper claimed that he was, quote, a wife beater. He's now suing the newspaper for £39 million.
It was difficult not to have a huge amount of empathy for Amber Heard, you know, with this immense pressure and for her to have to relive some of the most difficult moments of her life in a case that she never wanted to happen. It was Johnny Depp that brought the libel action against the Sun. And with it, it brought up some of the most harrowing moments of her life. And you couldn't help but feel sorry for her.
I traveled here to the UK to testify as a witness to assist the court. I did not file this lawsuit, and despite its significance, I would have preferred not to be here in court.
For Amber to come out when she did and talk about her experience, to go against the Hollywood system, to go against her spouse, who was much more famous and had a bigger voice than her, even though people were telling her that she was lying and not believing her, took a lot of courage.
It has been incredibly painful to have my motives, my truth questioned. I stand by my testimony, and I now place my faith in British justice.
was a huge amount of inherent misogyny around the courtroom. I think there was a feeling that, why would Johnny Depp take Amber Heard to court? He doesn't need this, he's got everything he needs. Why would he, unless she was lying? And it was said by some people, why didn't Amber Heard leave earlier? Why did she then go on to marry Johnny Depp when she had been victim to abuse? She then stayed with him for 2 more years. As we know, in abusive relationships, people become entrapped. It's very classic to not be able to leave your abuser, but there were definitely problematic opinions surrounding this trial. There were even, feminists saying it's for all the other women that are telling the truth. This case might do loads of damage. There were lots of women who were out to get Amber Heard. She was in a very difficult situation. Amber Heard was an incredibly beautiful, famous young woman whose star was rising. But now she was up against the force and the might of one of the biggest megastars in the world. It was clear this case might do loads of damage to her career.
Over the period of my career, I have been involved in defending and prosecuting cases of domestic violence, which range from what unfortunately is termed as low-level assaults, although they're very serious to the people suffering them, to murder. This case involves not just one incident of domestic violence. This case involves 14 pleaded cases over a course of years. My job in this case was to prove a pattern of abusive behaviour. Many cases of domestic violence amount to he said, she said. But the Depp case is unusual in that there is so much supporting evidence.
And he's got me by the hair. And
throughout the 3-year period of the abuse allegations, Miss Heard would record what was happening to her at the time. There were photographs of her injuries. There were medical records, texts to her mother and her friends, diary entries, in effect, on email. So you have a document that is timed and dated. And there was the text messages. We have the story told by the texts themselves. And it tells a story that it's very difficult to contradict.
David Sherborne, who represents Johnny Depp, is one of the most famous barristers in the world. He has represented Princess Diana, Elton John, the Beckhams. He is also the man that celebrities go to when they're in crisis. He has a sort of debonair, smooth energy about him, and he was always by Johnny Depp's side. You got the impression that they got on very well.
A lot of the case on behalf of Johnny Depp was that Amber Heard was lying. Somebody had to be lying. Either Johnny Depp was lying or Amber Heard was lying. So credibility was really key, and there were a number of ways in which we said it was obvious to the court that Amber Heard was lying, and that was very important to our case. It happened before I was involved in the case that a very large number of text communications from Johnny Depp to a number of other people were provided by mistake to the defendant, to the newspaper, by his former solicitors. The defendants were able then to pore over a very large number of communications.
The story the texts tell is that drugs, alcohol, and regret and apology played a very large part in their relationship, and that supported her account and didn't support his account.
I mean, those text messages were his downfall.
In March 2013, they had an argument which became a violent argument. Mr. Depp had spent some time at Miss Heard's place of residence at the time. He was under the influence of drink or drugs, and photographs existed of what he was taking and putting up his nose. Mr. Depp had lined up cocaine, been drinking whiskey all night, really been extremely inebriated. Mr. Depp took objection to a painting done by Miss Heard's ex-partner, which Miss Heard used to hang on the back of her bedroom wall. Mr. Depp was jealous. Mr. Depp tried to set fire to the painting with his cigarette lighter. And when she tried to stop him, he hit her with the back of his hand.
Amber Heard gave a very graphic account of how she said it happened, but was unable, when she was challenged, to really explain some of the details of it.
Amber Heard sent a series of texts describing the violence that she had suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. JD fell off the wagon last night, hardcore. He's on hour 24 of a major binge. Trying to escape here soon, though, and we'll head over to yours. Miss Heard texted her mother saying, "He's nuts, Mum, violent and crazy. I'm heartbroken that this is who I love." There were other incidents in March, several incidents in March. And there were further texts describing the violence that she had suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. Miss Heard took photographs of her injuries. What is apparent from the texts is there was a wealth of evidence supporting Miss Heard's claim that she was beaten by Mr. Depp.
What many people had assumed is that, you know, there was a honeymoon period and that Johnny Depp had charmed and been amazing at the beginning and Amber Heard had fallen in love. What we realised by observing the trial is that actually there'd been a very short period of love bombing of Amber Heard. And that very, very early on, Amber Heard said that the abuse and the jealousy and the coercive control had begun.
The Amber and Johnny relationship is about power. It's about a power imbalance. Johnny was a lot more famous. While on the outside they looked like this fairy tale A-list couple, it was actually very, very dark behind the scenes. And Amber was stuck in a relationship that actually seems nothing short of a nightmare.
I'm an old curmudgeon, and I don't get wowed very easy by actors, and Amber didn't wow me. I thought she had potential. As I got to know her, I thought she had special insights. I thought she had a seriousness, and she had determination. This is a storage unit with a lot of stuff from my past. Claim had a lot of people in this movie. That's one of the few I was proud of. And so we got a lot of actors' work. see. There's a Rolling Stone with Margot Kidder who I... Oh! Amber Heard right here. See, early contracts, Warner Brothers, one of her first contracts. $745 a day plus 10%. Amber was determined and serious, and so she didn't start out that savvy. She started out wanting to go to LA and start a career. There's one for you. Even at 16, he had penetrating eyes. A little bit later, there she's about 18. She's not giving you that fake glam stuff. I thought, this girl has it. She has what it takes to make it.
From the outside, it kind of looked like she has this like picture-perfect childhood. Her father worked with horses, so she ended up riding horses a lot as a child and loved being around animals and being in nature. What we now know, though, about that childhood is that her father was an alcoholic, that he had a very difficult relationship with her mother, and that it wasn't a great experience for her. In fact, it was quite traumatic. When she got into her teenage years, she actually ended up modeling, and that's kind of how she made money.
Talent scouts would come from Milan. They liked Amber. She had a good look, but she was a half inch too short. And I said, but maybe you can act.
What the fuck were you thinking? Thought that'd be funny? What, was that to be fucking cute?
And then when she was 17, she got her first film role in a B movie called Side Effects.
Look, you don't actually believe this guy, do you? You should call the cops. It's fine.
We knew we were making a low-budget horror film, and so we thought, well, we just need a really good-looking cast.
Sick fuck. No.
And she was very natural. See, there's blood dye underneath her fingernails. She was, funny, and that had a really positive outlook. And that's a huge thing. When you're doing something for no budget, we're not going to have trailers, and everybody's going to have to be a team and work together and be able to deal with a lot of long hours. She's smart, she's sharp, she's witty. She makes you feel comfortable. Anybody that makes you feel comfortable, you want to work with, because, you kind of want to trust the people that you're working with.
Amber was just my friend's sister, so when we went out, she would come and, we'd all hang out, and she's gorgeous. She's just as beautiful, and she would walk in a room and just light up the room, and just tons of friends, and super outgoing and super charismatic.
Hi, we're here with Amber Heard. And you're here with your movie, The Informers.
Yes.
Is this your first time at Sundance?
Yes, this is my first time at a film festival at all with the movie that I worked on, and what better place to start than Sundance?
In 2008, Amber met Tasha Van Ree, her girlfriend, and they had this very long relationship, and Amber was very, very much in love. In 2009, of course, is when Johnny met Amber Heard, and that's when he made The Rum Diaries. He was a producer on that film as well, and it was a film that he took very, very seriously, and Amber Heard was cast in it. And that pairing, that meeting, is, part of the story of where we are today. Johnny was with Vanessa Paradis, his partner, at that point, and Amber was with Tasha Van Ree, her girlfriend.
She says that he doggedly pursued her.
Amber's so good, and she's such a sweet kid, she's such a great girl. We just sort of tried to laugh it off,
He's such a pleasure. He's such a pleasure to work with. He's even better than I could have imagined him to be, which is saying something.
He and Amber are now an item. She actually broke up with her girlfriend.
You know, when Amber and Johnny first came out as a couple, Johnny was the biggest movie star in the world.
The first time that I met him, I will never forget this. We were at this very fancy restaurant. He's sitting opposite me, and then he reaches into his bag and starts rolling cigarettes on the table. He didn't even order anything on the menu. He just grabbed some snacks from his bag when we were all just eating 3-4 course meals, just snacking. I mean, older guy, hot young girl. I mean, it's not a crazy thing to have happen in Hollywood, especially.
You know, I think it's kind of been surprising to us that the abuse between Johnny and Amber started just a year after they got together. They were together for that whole time, we thought, in this perfect relationship and then A-list marriage. And actually things weren't great for them. It was actually very, very dark behind the scenes.
There was definitely a sense that, this age gap between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp was an issue in the relationship. He had real problems with Amber Heard being a very beautiful, successful woman, that her star was rising, and that Johnny Depp wanted to be the only star in the house. He wanted to contain her and control her. And when he couldn't control her, he would go into violent rages.
Controller, on initial contact, you have Yankee.
No, 4907, Canadian Patcher 127, decimal 75.
In May 2014, Mr. Depp chartered a plane to take himself and Miss Heard back to LA. Her account was that he was paralytically drunk and drugged up and had taken serious quantities of drugs.
Speed, runway 34 right, clear to take off.
34 right, clear to take off, that's 566.
Johnny had always been jealous of Amber's relationships with men and women. So whenever she would go out with girlfriends or guy friends, there was always something in the back of his head that made him anxious, that made him uncomfortable, where he just became very jealous and very paranoid about what was going on.
She had been filming in New York with an actor called James Franco. He was a much younger man, much closer in age to Miss Heard.
Yeah.
And Mr. Depp was very jealous of James Franco.
We're kind of thrown into it. I mean, with a movie like this, it's you know what the script is, and it's inevitably you have, some intimate scene for your very first scene. Fortunately, we were cool.
It was true. We got thrown in the deep end there because it was the first take, the first scene. It was, but that's what you do. I guess it helped break the ice.
And from the time he was on the plane, he was raging at her, calling her offensive words, hit her one occasion slapped her across the face, and kicked her in the back.
The evidence of the people on board was very clear that they had had an argument, that it had been started by Amber Heard. It was Amber Heard who stands up, she goes to the toilet, and I think Johnny Depp went playfully to put a foot out just to tap her. All the people who saw it said he didn't make contact, and the suggestion he could somehow have done all the things she says just couldn't have happened.
His account was that he was well behaved on the plane. He had been sketching in his sketchbook, which he liked to do. Unfortunately for Mr. Depp, his texts tell a very different story. Mr. Depp himself wrote a text to one of his actor friends. I'm going to properly stop the booze thing, darling. Drank all night before I picked Amber up to fly to LA this past Sunday. Ugly mate, no food for days, powders, half a bottle of whiskey, 1,000 Red Bull and vodkas, pills, 2 bottles of champers on the plane. And what do you get? An angry, aggro Indian in a fucking blackout, screaming obscenities and insulting any fuck who got near. And then went to the bathroom, toilet, at the back of the plane where he passed out. So a very different story from the account that he was quietly sketching on the plane.
After listening to the recording, Mr. Depp said he didn't recognise himself. It sounded more like an animal in pain. It's alleged that before he blacked out, he called Amber Heard a slut and a whore before slapping her across the face and kicking her in the back.
When there was another allegation of violence, there were exchanges between Mr. Depp and one of his friends about the rather unpleasant things they fantasized about doing to Miss Heard.
The details of this relationship really kind of paint a picture of a nightmare, really. Two people that we thought were in love, but we now know, because of the testimony in the High Court, that there was a lot of violence against Amber Heard and that it was an incredibly, incredibly traumatic experience.
I never fucked you over. I'm not going to. Anybody who knows me, if they had to list 2 or 3 things about me, one of those would be super honest, straightforward, honest. I know you have trust issues, but you can't let it cloud you knowing me. If anything...
Say that to me. Say that to me at the time.
One of the stranger practices of both Miss Heard and Mr. Depp is that they would have an argument and record it. And the idea was that they could learn from this. It was regarded as part of their marriage guidance therapy.
But I fought for that wedding, and we had that wedding, beautiful wedding, for what if we don't...
It did mean something, and it does mean something. And I didn't get married to you to fucking 17 more fights and it's fucking over with. We got married, I knew the fucking fights weren't gonna stop, but I thought maybe it would curb them a little.
There is this kind of simplified view with Hollywood, which is that the person that you know in the public eye is the same person that you think they are in private too. How could this person that I've grown up to love, whether it's on my TV screen or in movies, be anything other than the characters that they play? To them, Johnny Depp is this amazing, famous, beautiful man that they're used to seeing on film and they have fallen in love with. There is no way that he can possibly be the person that Amber Heard has said he is, or the person that The Sun reported him to be.
We can get through this shit if we want to. And if you're unsure, right now, don't complain.
You know I'm not. I love you. I love you.
There was a lot of psychological abuse that weren't necessarily just the blood and the violence and all of the very graphic signs of abuse. There was also some much more subtle, controlling levels of his personality which are demonstrated.
Cut me. You want to cut me somewhere?
Do I want to cut you?
Yeah, you want an arm, you want a chest? What do you want? What do you want the scar? What do you want? Cut me.
Just don't cut your skin. Please do not cut your skin. Please don't.
Cut me.
Why would I do that?
It's easy.
Don't, please do not do that. Please do not do that. Don't. Please don't. Don't cut yourself. Please don't cut yourself. Please don't cut yourself. Please, I know it hurts.
You do it.
I would never cut you.
Cut me.
I would never do that to you.
In the press, there was definitely, a lot of reporting of the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial as, they were just in a very tempestuous relationship. It was a toxic pairing, and that's a dangerous road to go down because it abdicates Johnny Depp of any responsibility, and it also washes away this idea that he's a domestic abuser.
In December 2015, Mr. Depp came to the Eastern Columbia building where Miss Heard was living. They had an argument. He started becoming physically violent towards Miss Heard, which became a violent argument. And he wrote graffiti on the kitchen surface, "Why be a fraud, all is bullshit." He threw her onto a bed, throwing himself on top of her, breaking the frame of the bed. He pulled her by the hair so hard that clumps of her hair were actually removed, or part of her scalp with reddening where hair had been removed, and in fact seen on the floor and photographed later by her. During the course of this, headbutted Miss Heard, and injuries that she had afterwards, which were photographed. A cut to her lip, and bilateral bruising, which is photographed at various times coming up, which is consistent with a bang to the nose or a headbutt. And these photographs were taken on the day and on the day afterwards. Miss Heard had to go on to a chat show the following day and had said to her publicist she might not be able to attend because she said she'd had an accident rather than that she had been beaten up.
In the movie, you play a ballerina. Did you study ballet? Could you already do it?
No. She did appear on the James Corden show. Makeup was applied to her face, and the makeup disguised the injuries. The makeup artist did give evidence, and she said what she had seen, which was bilateral bruising, a cut to the lip, and swelling around the eyes. So there was supporting evidence, all of which fitted in with her account.
And then the court was played a recording of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and in that recording, Johnny Depp concedes that he did actually headbutt Amber Heard.
Headbutted you. Fucking.
Couldn't do that.
Forehead.
And that is a hugely shocking moment in a trial where he basically says he wasn't violent at all. Here comes a moment when Sasha Vascusi dissects him at the stand. This is a masterclass in cross-examination.
He had always denied causing her any injury, and then we have a complete about-turn in his evidence when he accepted he was responsible, he accepted that he headbutted her, but said it was an accident.
And in the court of public opinion and in the High Court, this was a moment you could see where a lot of sympathy was directed towards Amber Heard.
How are you doing?
After he headbutted her, she started divorce proceedings almost immediately, and she went to get a domestic violence restraining order.
You could visibly see that she had bruises on the side of her face.
Johnny and Amber's marriage was a massive story for the American press in general. You know, they had seemed like this perfect couple.
How are you feeling?
And then it completely exploded. Everything had gone wrong. I was completely bombarded on social media by fans of Johnny telling me that Amber was a gold digger.
Depp is worth an estimated $400 million, and the couple reportedly did not have a prenuptial agreement.
And then when I saw the pictures of her face, I felt really, really sad for her. When you see evidence, it can be incredibly heartbreaking. It just reminds you that there is this visual receipt of what has happened. And it just made me really, really sad that somebody had had the courage to come out and speak about it, but then had been called a liar immediately.
She is a woman that literally just thinks the world will believe her because she's a woman.
Do I feel that she is a victim of a physical abusive relationship? No, I don't feel that at all.
Being called a liar and a gold digger, and I'm not lying about any of this, and I am not after a dime of your money.
My family and all the death threats that me and every single person in my immediate circle of friends and family is getting.
I have said only this from the very beginning. I only have my integrity.
On or around the time of the actual divorce, Mr. Depp wrote a series of vile texts describing her in really very misogynistic terms and vowing that he was going to damage her, if not destroy her.
My company focuses on disinformation online, targeted attacks, and so we're kind of like online investigators for celebrities and high-profile figures. Early 2020, we were contacted to look at activity on Twitter, and we were able to determine close to 6,000 fake or inauthentic accounts that were targeting Miss Heard, Amber Heard. Definitely the smear campaign, definitely the coordinated influence campaign. Really didn't have to be a pro to see it. If you just looked at the tweets and see that, hey, this account within 10 minutes tweeted 30 times or so that Amber Heard is a abuser, Amber Heard is a gold digger, Amber Heard is a slut, and that's all this account is doing. And then you amplify that with dozens of other accounts doing the same exact thing. And it appeared to us that it wasn't just some disgruntled fans, banding together to attack Miss Heard. It was a targeted operation, and it was one of the most sophisticated online targeted attacks we had seen.
Leading up to the judgment, definitely the court of public opinion and the journalists outside and swathes of people started to believe Johnny Depp's side. I don't think people were entirely convinced by Amber Heard.
When we see these tabloids, we really need to think and reflect, is this true or is this not true?
There were assertions being made about Miss Heard, about her character, about her reliability, about her integrity. Miss Heard was a fantasist, she was a liar, she was a drunk, she was a drug addict, she was a promiscuous woman, so that her character was, in effect, destroyed.
I've watched every blog, every Twitter, every YouTube thing, every paper. Yeah, there's not much I haven't missed.
There's absolutely no evidence towards her so-called evidence.
Oh, I think she's very, very deceitful. I think she's manipulated the whole situation very, very well.
You're a piece of human garbage! Get hit by a truck, Amber!
I don't think he did this, personally.
This can only go now in Johnny Depp's favour.
the relationship ends as it began, with the world watching on.
Whoever emerges the winner, there's been a lot of dirty laundry aired and a lot of damage done to reputations on both sides.
You had a huge army of fans that supported Johnny Depp. For Amber, the fans were definitely much harder to find. There were no fans for Amber Heard outside of the court.
For Amber to go to court when she had been absolutely harassed by the Johnny fans, and then also been a victim of a smear campaign from the press, took a lot of bravery.
Johnny Depp has lost his fight with a British tabloid. A London court sided with the paper, saying that the 2018 headline that read, "Johnny was a wife beater," was true.
Judge Mr. Justice Nicol found that 12 of the 14 alleged incidents of domestic violence were, in his words, substantially true. Johnny Depp lost his libel case against The Sun. Just when you saw that flash up on Sky News and BBC News, there was huge kind of gasps. The judge said that Amber Heard was no angel, but that she was the victim of an abuser. And this was an earth-shattering moment and vindicated Amber Heard, and was catastrophic for Johnny Depp, who of course had brought this action himself. It was his decision to take this libel action, nobody else's.
Today, the judge ruled that the article was substantially true, and that a majority of the alleged assaults had been proved to the civil standard.
The judge dismissed the idea that Miss Heard was a gold digger and accepted her career had probably been damaged by the revelations.
It has been incredibly painful to relive the breakup of my relationship, to have my motives, my truth questioned, and the most traumatic and intimate details of my life with Johnny shared in court and broadcast to the entire world.
Lawyers for Depp said the court's verdict was, quote, as perverse as it is bewildering. Quote, most troubling is the judge's reliance on the testimony of Amber Heard.
Johnny was somebody who was used to getting his way. He'd been famous for an incredibly long time. He was used to being surrounded by people who would give him whatever he wanted, say yes to whatever he needed. I don't know if he thought that this was going to be any different, because he was Johnny Depp. He was used to getting his way. And I'm not sure that he even possibly contemplated that he might not win.
Johnny Depp is stepping down from his role in the Fantastic Beasts franchise, just days after losing his libel lawsuit.
The case started because of a story in The Sun about Johnny Depp being cast in the Fantastic Beasts movie, and days after he lost his libel trial, Warner Brothers announced that he would leave the franchise.
This was obviously very, very bad for him and could be incredibly damaging for the rest of his career.
Copy that, Miss West? Yeah.
Two judges heard the appeal and rejected it.
They are set to go to trial in Virginia next February. The judge believes it's going to take about 12 days.
The fight goes on for Johnny Depp. His lawyers continue to fight for his innocence, and that's exactly what we're going to see in Virginia as well.
It is a landmark moment for survivors of domestic abuse. It shows if you're an abuser, you're going to be found out.
Many, many domestic violence cases depend on one person's word against the other. In this case, there was a wealth of evidence entirely independent of Miss Heard, but evidence which supported what she said. The judge was persuaded by not only misheard herself, but by that independent supporting evidence. So I wasn't surprised.
Whether you like Amber Heard or not is completely irrelevant. This case was about domestic abuse, and I think it shows us domestic abuse and coercive control can happen to anybody. I think people had this idea that, you know, because Johnny Depp was charming and quietly spoken and was handsome and, you know, that he couldn't possibly be a domestic abuser. And as we know, abusers have redeeming features, so do all human beings. And I think this really was a moment for people to realise that it can happen to anybody.
You have given me so much strength, and I send it back to you. Thank you.